Hello everyone, I'm Nathan Murphy, also known as Mountaineer Murph, and I want to thank you for tuning in to my pilot episode of Mountaineer Murph's Mountaineer Mania. A little background about me: I'm a West Virginian born and raised. Uh, After college, had to bounce around a little bit, moved around. Spent the last 10 years out here in Michigan, so I am now a Michigander, but by no means a Wolverine or a Spartan. But out here in Michigan now, still huge West Virginia fan, and do the best I can to follow just about every sport that we've got at that great university. And so I wanted to start a show and just drop my opinions, and again solely opinions on the state of some of the programs there in Morgantown. We're gonna hit a bunch of them, just about all of them. We're gonna go. Obviously, we're going to talk about the big money sports. We're going to talk about basketball. We're going to talk about football. We'll do that a lot. I can't wait, actually, for baseball season to roll around. I love following the Mountaineer baseball team. But we're also going to talk about some of these other sports, including a couple of sports or a couple of teams that I went and saw a lot while I was at WVU way back in the early 2000s, graduated in 2007. So it's been about 20 years since I've been to any sporting events in Morgantown, but a couple of the programs that me and my buddies used to follow a lot were the soccer teams. And I want to give a huge, huge shout out to the women's soccer team, who they are in now the second round of the NCAA tournament. They were hosting the NCAA tournament first round games in Morgantown. Nikiza Brown, the coach there, has a phenomenal program, and that program started building while I was there. Me and my buddies, we would go all the time to women's soccer games in particular. We loved watching the soccer team. They were building, they were becoming nationally ranked while we were there on a very consistent basis. And this season marked their 24th season making the postseason, that NCAA tournament in women's soccer. And it's the 24th time in the last 26 seasons. Izzo Brown has done a fantastic job at that program, building them into a national powerhouse. They've been to a national title game. It got beat by a very good UNC team that season in the championship game, but an absolute testament to how good that program has been for what is now a very, very long time. So again, I expect that will continue. She's doing a phenomenal job with recruiting, continuing to bring in excellent soccer talent to the women's soccer team. They just dumped Wagner in their first round game, 5-0. That again at this Dick Gillespie Soccer Stadium in Morgantown, which 20 years ago, I haven't been back since, like I said, but it was a phenomenal brand new stadium then. They built it, I believe somewhere around 2004, 2005, and it really gave that program, a great facility to play in and host not just regular season games, but, Big 12 and Sun Belt Conference tournament games, as well as NCAA tournament games. So that is phenomenal achievement for the women's soccer team, and you'll see me looking down. I apologize. I have my app here. I want to be able to go through a lot of the things for both men's and women's sports, so you'll see me kind of looking down, going through some of my app here. But again, that soccer program, excellent job getting into the second round. They will go to D.C., I believe, on the 20th. So this being recorded on November 18th, so in a couple of days from now, they'll be in D.C. playing Georgetown, the number 2 seed in their side of the bracket. And not an easy game. The Hoyas, obviously, a very good program, very good this season. So we'll see if they can get in there on the road and win another big game and advance into what would be the Sweet 16 of their women's soccer bracket. So that's the women. The men, just as good. And again, they were starting to build. They weren't quite as good as the women's team when I was there, but they are continuing to build that program. Finished the season 7-2 in conference play. No Big 12 conference play in soccer. It's Sun Belt. So I actually get to play against teams like Marshall multiple times a year, which is awesome because there's not enough of that. You see them in basketball every season, in in the Civic Center Classic when they get in there to the Civic Center and play. But we don't get to see them in football. Do see them in baseball, which is great, and also now in soccer, both being in the Sun Belt Conference. Finished 7-2 in the conference, 12-4-3 overall, so a very good season. They also qualified for the NCAA tournament. They will host a game, that game again on the 20th, so in a couple of nights from now when we're recording this, against the St. John Red Storm. So again, very good, another very good program here in the soccer universe. We're only 3-10 against St. John's in our history. So this will be a very tough matchup for West Virginia to get out of the first round. So if you are in the Morgantown area and you have the opportunity, go watch that game. Tickets are usually pretty cheap. Get in there, root on your Mountaineers. They're going to need some support. They're going to need some help. Again, a big program win if they can get it and move on into the second round. That game, again, at home, always nice to have those home games. So let's move on. We're going to stay away from football for just a minute. Plenty to talk about on the football side of things. But let's go to the hard court. Women's basketball. And I tell you what, this program, again, it's another one of those programs that has gotten better and better and better. And they've been consistent. Last few seasons especially, they've had some big wins. Just recently, back on November 14th, so about 4 days ago, West Virginia's women's basketball team in the Greenbrier Tip-Off Classic upset number 15 Duke, and they did it by a final score of 57-49, 8-point win, which is great. It's impressive in and of itself. But if you guys don't know the story to this, I found this out. I was just scrolling through TikTok one night, happened to see someone talking about West Virginia women's sports, and I was a little bit blown away that this popped up on TikTok. A West Virginia video on TikTok, and this lady, not a West Virginian, she's just a college basketball fan, I believe a sports writer or a sports influencer of some sort, and she was talking about this game, and that's how I came to know some of these details, and then dug in a little bit and was able to follow up. West Virginia down 3 at halftime against Duke. Now, not the important part of the story. The most important part of the story is what happened right as this game went to halftime. A little bit of a scuffle breaks out between one of the Mountaineers and one of the Duke players, and not only does it involve those two on the court, the West Virginia bench empties. So the ladies off the bench all hit the court. The Duke players, smart enough to stay on the bench. And that is major because in college basketball, if you leave the bench for something like this, you are automatically ejected. And so the one Mountaineer on the court at the time, the one Blue Devil that got involved in this little skirmish, both of them ejected, and every single player on the Mountaineer bench came off the bench onto the court. Every single one of them got ejected. So West Virginia plays the entire second half against the number 15 team in the nation, the Duke Blue Devils, with 0 subs. I mean, it's hard enough to play, a quarter of women's basketball at that level without having anybody come in and sub you out. I'm now 41 years old. I don't know that I could run up and down the court 3 times without needing to go sit down and get a break and get some oxygen and some water. So that is a very big factor in this. But not only does West Virginia survive that, they come out in the third quarter and they put it on the Duke Blue Devils, 24-9 in quarter number 3 alone. Just in quarter number 3, they erase a 3-point deficit and wind up with a big lead going into quarter number 4. A 12-point lead heading into quarter number 4. They would get that lead up at one point to 13 in the fourth quarter. Duke does outscore West Virginia 17-13 in the fourth quarter. So they cut down into that lead. And so they make a little bit of a cut into that lead. Now, they had it down to 5 points. At one point in time, Duke cuts it all the way down to 5. West Virginia survives, makes some free throws down the stretch, upsets Duke with 0 subs. They move to 4-0, 3-0 at home. So obviously, early season, you're playing a lot of programs, a lot of teams that are not national powerhouses. So you're racking up some easier wins early in the season. Temple and Duke, their last 2 victories. Before that, it was Kent State and Purdue Fort Wayne. So they're not playing anybody over the top talented right now, except for that Duke program. They're coming out and getting a huge win in that game right there. And that hopefully sets the tone for the rest of this Mountaineer basketball season. Hopefully those ladies can take that and just run with it, run with some of this momentum, get into conference play. And again, you're going to run into some pretty good programs inside the women's basketball division, inside the Big 12. So again, hopefully we see that really take off for these women. On the men's side of the hard court, or on the hardwood, you're looking at a program that's now under their second head coach in the last 2 seasons. That's insane. That is tough to think about a program that, no, we're not blue blood programs, in any sport. You don't think of West Virginia as one of those teams, one of those powerhouse teams. But West Virginia's got a very proud basketball tradition in Morgantown. You go to that Coliseum and it's going to be packed. Night in and night out, no matter who you play, no matter how good that team is, we bring fans into the Coliseum. All right, just like we bring fans to Mountaineer Field, no matter how good the football team is. People show up for West Virginia sports. And, I was there during the Beeline era, when John Beeline had, his son Patrick. He had Johannes Herber, Mike Gansey, Kevin Pittsnoggle. When that whole program took off to that next level, right? Gail Catlett was a great coach for a long time. Not a lot of sustained success, in and out of the NCAA tournament. Very, very rarely in, mostly out. John Beeline had that program humming, right? And then he leaves for Michigan. He had some success as a Wolverine, unlike Rodriguez, who we'll talk about later. But then you get into obviously the Huggy Bear era. Huggy Bear gets it to a Final Four. Has all those fantastic teams, has those athletes, playing much different style. Press Virginia comes to life, and so then after that, now Huggins is gone. We're trying to find our way. We had DeVries last season, was supposed to be a big name for us. Supposed to be someone that helped push us back to that national dominant or national prowess. Didn't get there, right? One season, didn't have a great season, didn't have a lot of time to build that back up in his image. Bales goes at I think Indiana, whatever, who cares, right? Just another coach that uses West Virginia as a stepping stone to another major program. So we're done with that. You get Hughes come in now, and Hughes is going to come in and he's going to impart his style, his program, his recruiting. And we want to see this program again. We want to get back to that John Beeline, and Bob Huggins level of play. We want to be in the tournament consistently, right? We're not going to be Michigan State making the tournament, whatever, like 26, 27. I call up my buddy Brody right now, and he would tell you exactly how many years in a row Michigan State's made the tournament. That's his thing. He's a Spartan, and he can tell you that right off rip. Every season, what it is. He remembers all that stuff. We want to get to that. We may never be at that level, but that's the type of program we want to have, right? That's the type of program everybody aspires to have, and we'll see if Hughes can get us there, or excuse me, saying Hughes, it's Hodge, Ross Hodge. We'll see if Hodge can get us there. Now, Mountaineers, 5 games, early season, all 5 at home, relatively untested, right? Biggest win right now is the Pitt Panthers. We got the backyard brawl in Morgantown. It was a big game, big draw, and we just blew them out. Right, so that maybe is our best test right now. They are 3-1, or 3-1 overall. So they came in 3-0 just like we did in that ball game, and we just dominated. Right, we were able to come out 34-25 going into the break. We outscored them again in the second half, 37-24, 71-49 your final score. And again, last night on the 17th, we had another game at home against Lafayette. Blew them out, 81-59, the final score there. So right now, this basketball team is humming. Now we'll see in a couple of nights. And again, this is being recorded on the 18th. So on the 21st, Friday night, Clemson down in Charleston, South Carolina. So not a road game. It's technically a neutral site game, but much more a road game than we've seen so far to this point in our first five. So we're going to see just how good this West Virginia team can be away from the Coliseum, right? And we are going to really get a sense of what this team can do. 5-0 right now. Again, not much competition. A couple more easier games. You're gonna have Clemson, and then you're gonna play either Georgia or Xavier after that on the 23rd. So you're going to have a couple of really tough games right there in the Shriners Children's Charleston Classic, excuse me. So in that little, in early season tournament, you're going to have a couple of quality opponents coming out of that. Then you play Mercyhurst and Copen State, again, back here in Morgantown, or back there in Morgantown, before you get to the Holiday Hoop Fest and take on Wake Forest. That game is in Charleston, West Virginia. So again, not a road game, not a home game, but obviously a much more of a home game than it will be for Wake Forest. That'll be all blue and gold. All right. So again, it's a home game, just away from the Coliseum. Then you play Little Rock in Morgantown. Then you go to Cleveland to take on Ohio State. Now that will be, that will be a test before you get Mississippi Valley State at home and then go into Big 12 play. So this is a team that should theoretically, at most, 2, maybe 3 losses going into conference play. So you're set up really well, and obviously, you want to just build as big of a resume as you can and get to that point. But getting into conference play where you can, hopefully rattle off, 6-7 wins in conference play or better. Obviously this is a very, very tough conference, even in basketball. You want to be playing your best basketball coming into, January and February and then head into March. So we've got a chance to build some momentum, but you got to take care of business in all of these easy games, even though you're playing in your second system in the last 2 years. Right now they're doing that. I don't really foresee a problem. Again, they're going to have some big games coming up here soon. All right. So here we go. Let's talk about the moneymaker, West Virginia football. All right, you got it. The LSU panorama behind me. Big contest in Morgantown. You got the Fiesta Bowl victory. Over Oklahoma over here on this shoulder. Little caricature image that my wife got me for Christmas one year. That was beautiful, beautiful win there in the Fiesta Bowl. Right after Coach Rich Rodriguez bails, leaves for Michigan, here in Ann Arbor, about an hour and a half from where I am now. Come full circle now. Here we are, 2025. Rodriguez is back, season 1, part 2, and so he's got the program sitting at 4-7. Now, if I'm going to be honest, we're probably going to finish 4-8. I don't know, regardless of how well we've played lately, if we can take care of business, even though it's at home against Texas Tech. So, let's get into why, right? I mean, we're finally finding our starting quarterback, right? Scotty Fox Jr., he has taken over. He played well against TCU. In fact, played extremely well against TCU. So we found our starting quarterback because he's continued to play well since then. And we're starting to find a running game. Dior Hubbard is kind of taken over. We thought Jaheim White was going to be the guy. He gets hurt against Ohio, ends his season. Edwards comes in, looks really good against Pitt, but he's been hurt since then. Hasn't really played since then. So that running game kind of fell apart. And then after that Pitt game, I mean, we were just abysmal. This offense was terrible. And Rodriguez, being that offensive genius that he is, you kind of wondered where things were going with this Mountaineer football program. Now, back in 2007, when he bolted on us, I was adamant that he should never show his face in Morgantown again. Fast forward through the Holgerson experiment, after Coach Stewart. I wasn't a huge fan of Coach Stewart being the head coach. I loved Coach Stewart as a person, as a motivator. He was great. I didn't think the offense was good at all under Stewart. That's why they brought in Holgerson. And then I think Stewart maybe got shafted as Holgerson took over. But Holgerson had that exciting offense. That's what we wanted. When that program was humming, we won the Big East. We won the Orange Bowl. We came out, started on fire our first season in the Big 12 until the wheels fell off. And then after that, it was always kind of hit or miss. Some games we would look great. Some games we would look bad. And then he bolts on us. He says, you know what, I can't recruit here in West Virginia. I can't recruit the local talent. I'm going to Houston. Last there for 2 seasons. And then he's gone. Maybe 3 seasons. I don't remember. But he takes off. He's out. And now there's Neil Brown. And the Neil Brown experiment, 1.5 good seasons. Saved his job with a 9-win season, winning the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Still, I'm glad to see him out of here. And the second he was gone, I was a huge advocate of bringing Rich Rodriguez back to Morgantown. So yeah, I kind of jumped ship, and then flipped the script on Rich Rodriguez and what I thought we should do with Rich Rodriguez. Now, fast forward the end of the season here, 2025, his first season, and he's got 4 wins, and it really could have been better, could have been a lot worse. Finally found a starting quarterback, which I'm glad to see Scotty Fox Jr. playing well. Really happy to see that he's finally found that guy. But we're going into a bye week, so we're going to have some extra time, right? Texas Tech, they got to play this weekend. We're going to have a little bit of extra time. We get to prepare for Texas Tech at home. We have nothing to play for, though, right? So we're not going to make a bowl game. You're kind of at this point wondering, other than Nico Markgiel, who's going to leave for the transfer portal, right? I mean, who's going to come back? Who's going to leave? And I don't, the coaches aren't already thinking, okay, well, I got to replace so-and-so and so-and-so, and they're not already looking at who might be in the transfer portal. Now, I'm sure there's somebody on the staff that's job it is to do that, is kind of looking into that, but I don't think Rodriguez and, the rest of the staff is diving that deep into it. I would hope not at this point. Obviously, you still want to go out and perform. You still want to go out and beat Texas Tech. It's senior night in a couple of weeks, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of that next week and on next week's show. This one being recorded on a Tuesday, so hopefully Sunday is when this show will start coming out on a more regular basis every Sunday. So we can get more into what happened on that previous Saturday. We'll get into what's coming up in the next week or the next weekend's game, and we'll talk, again about some of these other sports, how they did during the week, and so on and so forth. But so I won't get too far into Texas Tech right now. But one of my biggest issues, and I'm going to go ahead and say this, is this game is senior night. It's a home game, the weekend of Thanksgiving, and I absolutely hate that for the students. Right, I was a student there for too many years, 5.5 actually. So I hated those games that fell that Friday, Saturday after Thanksgiving. The one before Thanksgiving, wasn't really that big of a deal. You're probably there, but the one after Thanksgiving was the one that sucked, because they didn't open things back up to students that lived in the dorms until the Sunday following. Right, you couldn't get back into your place. So if you lived in a dorm, or you were an RA like I was for a while, in those dorms, you didn't have a place to live. They moved you out of there on break. You couldn't stay in the dorms on break, so you didn't have a place to stay. So those Saturday games after Thanksgiving, you look at the student section on Saturday when this game kicks off, it's going to be almost empty. And that is a huge detriment. Now, if this game meant a little bit more, it would probably hurt a little bit more. You still wouldn't have that student section being full. You're still not going to have those kids that can't afford to stay in a hotel room even for a night. Most hotel rooms are going to be booked anyway because the ticket holders are going to have those rooms or have a lot of those rooms, right? And Morgantown, unless something in the last 20 years has really changed, they don't have a ton of hotels, right in that Morgantown area, and even out through Fairmont, 15, 20, whatever minutes away, still not a boatload of hotels out there. So you don't have a whole lot of places to stay, so you're going to have a lot of students that aren't there. And so the crowd noise is going to be down. It's going to make things a little bit easier for Texas Tech coming in. And again, this is not a game that's going to mean really anything to West Virginia. Maybe a chance to play spoiler. Texas Tech coming in, a chance to maybe get into the Big 12 title game. Maybe a chance to get themselves into the playoffs with a conference championship win. So West Virginia maybe can play some spoiler there, but that'll be about it. And not going to be able to get bowl eligible because of the loss, and that hurt. That game against Arizona State on Saturday, that hurt us. It cost us a chance to be bowl eligible. Well, I say cost. It didn't cost us. It keeps us from being able to get to that. But the performance earlier in the year, in that 4-game stretch early in the Big 12 season where we just were inept offensively, and no matter how good the defense played for stretches of time, the offense wasn't helping them out at all. Getting blown out in multiple games in Big 12 conference really just looked bad. Now we got it going, we got it in the right direction, got things a lot closer. And I'll tell you that heartbreaker in Tempe on Saturday, credit to the club for getting themselves back in that ball game. Looked a little bit ugly for a while, but that swing pass to Sincere Bowers, boy, that 90-yard run, boy, I was just yelling at the TV by the time he got down there. Don't get caught, don't get caught, don't get caught. And he finds his way into the end zone, 90-yard catch and run. Just a 2-yard swing pass, nothing on third and 27. Right, even Golick and whoever was announcing was like, oh, you don't have anything in the playbook for 3rd and 27. There's nothing that you can call in this situation. And Sincere Bowers, it says that typical, Mountaineer, that hold my beer. And here we go. 90 yards later, he's in the end zone. West Virginia has the lead. Not a great call in the 2-point conversion play, trying to go with Jones. And I think he slipped. I tried to go with Jones, powering it in from the 3. Tough call on that play call, but that's play that you've gained 3 yards with consistently since you started running that package. So it's tough to say anything about that call, but now Arizona State gets it downfield after your defense made a couple of nice stops to help get you back in that game. Can't come up with a stop there, and then you go 3 and out, 4 and out really on your next possession. And that's that. Now you're not making a bowl game. But I got to say, the last 4 games, we go 2-2 in our last 4, but we've looked like a football team in those 4 games. Right? You look at TCU. TCU probably a better team than we are. We were right there with them. You look at Arizona State. They're a bowl team. They still have an outside shot to make the conference championship game. Depending on how some things shake out for some teams here in the last couple of weeks, including themselves, they could be in the Big 12 title game. So those 2 losses sandwiched around the upset win against Houston on the road and the big win the following week. And boy, I don't even know why I can't even think of who Colorado. That win against Colorado. Be, you know, so that is one of those things that you got to take a deep breath. You got to take a step back. It's a disappointing end to that win streak that was up to 2, but here we are. And now you're looking at hopefully beating another ranked team to close out the season, build some momentum, get into that transfer portal, and really rebuild this program the way you want it. Rodriguez, I think, still is going to get this program where it needs to be. So with that, guys, I want to thank you again for joining me on the pilot episode of Mountaineer Murph's Mountaineer Mania. We will see you next week, Sunday, and again, this is going to start dropping on Sundays. We'll talk about what happened the week prior, things coming up in the following week, and try and preview, and then we'll get into some other fun things. I got a little bit of a rant, football uniform wise. So if you're into those kind of things, drop a listen. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you guys subscribe to the channel. I enjoy. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're on Spotify, again, drop a like so you guys can see when the new episodes do drop, and you can get in here and take a listen, take a look. And, if you got anything that you would like to go over, or like me to go over, like to talk about, want maybe a question or an opinion discussed on the show, you can send me an email, mountaineermurph23@gmail.com. I'll look into that, and I'll try and get as many of those on the episode as I can as we get going through. But again, thank you for joining me. I'm Mountaineer Murph. This has been Mountaineer Mania, and we'll see you next week.